Hello, hello, my friends. I'm Ali Melendez, and this is Sports Insiders The Spin, where we have another huge weekend of football action lined up just for you, because you know I love ya. Now, the NFL got off to an amazing start last week. If you watched it, then I don't have to tell you, you know. And of course, there's plenty more of that on tap for week 2. Now, the guys will be along with us in just a bit with a look at the biggest games on the NFL schedule. But first, it is time to walk on over to the college side, where with all the realignment, has a really interesting few matchups this week. Here to sort it all out for us, our very own Drew Butler and Gabe Ikard. Welcome, fellas.
Thanks so much, Ali. Drew Butler joined alongside Gabe Ikard. It is the Spin Sports Insider taking a look at college football week 3. And Gabe, week 2, a little chaos ensued. I think some results across the landscape that most weren't expecting. And how about this? Heading into week 3, yes, it's a different year of college football, conference realignment, teams in new spaces, a little bit of a rivalry week renewed as we head into the weekend. But before we get to the rivalries, let's start with the great SEC Big Ten matchup. This game is at noon Eastern over on Fox. The 4th-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide are heading to Camp Randall to take on the Wisconsin Badgers. Right now, Gabe, Alabama, a large 16-point favorite. The over-under sits at 51.5 points.
Alabama's the more talented team. I don't think anyone's going to argue that, but I can't wait to see what this atmosphere at Camp Randall looks like.
Yeah.
I think this place is going to be absolutely insane. I don't think this is a game where it's ever going to be in doubt for Alabama, but here's how I see it going. I think Tyler Van Dyke in this Wisconsin offense, while I think it'll struggle to find consistency, I do think it'll be able to produce some big plays against the Alabama secondary, which seems to be a weak point of that football team right now. You combine that with Wisconsin's defense maybe being able to get some red zone stops and force some field goals against Jalen Milroe and that Alabama offense. I think the Badgers can keep it close enough to cover. You may be sweating it out in the 4th, but I think that they're capable of doing that. I think they can feed off the energy of the crowd. I'm going to take the points with Wisconsin.
Okay, yeah, Alabama fans certainly were sweating last week. South Florida kept it close until Alabama was able to break away late in the game. But this is the first meeting between these two opponents, Alabama, Wisconsin, since the 2015 season opener that took place in Arlington, Texas at Jerry World. Alabama won that game 35-17. And Luke Fickell, the head coach at Wisconsin, he's not all too unfamiliar going up against Alabama. Of course, he was the head coach at Cincinnati when the Bearcats took on the Tide in the college football playoff back in 2021. This is Alabama's first trip to Madison, Wisconsin, Gabe, since 1928, their first Big Ten road game since back in 2011 when they went up to Happy Valley. They beat up on Penn State over 10 years ago. Bama has won 9 straight road openers, but they are 0-5 against the spread in their last 5 road openers, so that could bode well for you. However, I don't expect Tyler Van Dyke and Wisconsin's offense to keep up the pace with Jalen Milroe and Alabama. Yes, they did have a quote-unquote scare a week ago against South Florida. I know they broke away late. I think they're able to kind of reset, refocus. This is a business trip going up north. Kalen DeBoer, Alabama's head coach, is going to be able to put on a show from an offensive play calling perspective. I just think this is SEC speed against a Big Ten defense that won't know exactly what hit them. This one could get away from the Badgers. I like Alabama big. I'll lay the 16 points with the Crimson Tide. All right, let's go out west, the Pacific Northwest to be specific. It's the Civil War. The 9th-ranked Oregon Ducks are heading to Corvallis to take on Oregon State. This kickoff is at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. It's on Fox. And right now, Oregon, check this out, a 16-point favorite. The over-under is 50 points.
Weird things happen at night in Corvallis.
Oh, yeah.
But this game is during the day. So I think that I like laying the points with the Ducks, and it hasn't looked the way that we thought it would look through the first 2 weeks with Oregon. The offensive line has struggled compared to expectations. Dylan Gabriel hasn't found many explosive plays in the vertical passing game. The defense for the Ducks has been okay. And I know that Oregon State is going to come out with the intensity of 1,000 suns in this football game because Oregon left them and the Pac-12 died. But I feel like this is a game where it kind of comes together for Oregon. So I'm going to lay the 16 with the Ducks. And that over-under of 50 is awfully enticing for me because I think Oregon's going to be in the 40s in this game. So I've got my eyes on the over on this one as well.
Yeah, you hope Oregon gets it together. I know the Oregon faithful feel the same. Through the first 2 weeks, a little bit of a head scratcher with so many expectations heading into the season. And Gabe, Oregon, the Ducks, have not won in Corvallis since 2018, and the home team in this series is on a 4-0 straight up and against the spread streak in this rivalry. So things to notice there. Oregon start to the season, it's been poor to say the least. I don't know if the Ducks should be laying 16 against anyone at this point, and the over in this series, you just mentioned it, you love the over 50. It's been a big trend. 16 of the last 21 games have gone over in this rivalry, 3 of the last 4 in recent history. Oregon has so many weapons on offense, of course, led by quarterback Dylan Gabriel. He's a Heisman hopeful. Tez Johnson Jr. on the outside. He's a deep threat, but they've yet to show that they are on the same page. This is a huge home dog in a bitter, bitter rivalry. No love lost here. I'm going on the other side. Give me Oregon plus 16. That's more than 2 touchdowns. I just don't have faith in Oregon. I watched that game last week against Boise State. Of course, Ashton Genty, he is a total stud. He should be at the top of everybody's Heisman boards. That's the Boise State running back. But Oregon just didn't have an answer. Will Dan Lanning and Tosh Lupoy be able to put it all together? This is a tough game to do it in a tough spot. I'll go with the trends here. Give me Oregon State plus 16. All right, let's head to the Rocky Mountain Showdown. Yes, another in-state rivalry. Colorado at Colorado State, 7:30 p.m. kickoff. This one is on CBS, Gabe. Colorado, a 7.5-point favorite. This over-under sits at 58.5 points.
I'm going to lay the points with Colorado, and here's why. I'm going to choose to believe that Shedeur Sanders' comments about his offensive line after the football game will not have the big fellas boycotting blocking for him. Okay. I think they're going to be able to work it out in the locker room. And if Colorado State can get the running game going with Justin Marshall and maybe hit Torrey Horton on some big plays down the field in the passing game, then maybe this thing gets interesting. But I just think Colorado's the more talented team. I think they've got the better quarterback, and they're going to have the best player on the field with Travis Hunter. You combine all that together, I think Colorado bounces back nicely from an embarrassing Nebraska loss, and I'll lay the points. I think they can put a nice offensive game together against Colorado State's defense.
All right, I got to say, I did not see that coming from the offensive lineman himself, kind of dismissing Shedeur Sanders.
I did not love the comments. I did not love the comments, but I trust them to be able to work through it, okay?
Hey, linemen, they are consummate professionals. There's no doubt about that. Get this, the first time, this weekend, it's the first time Colorado has played in Fort Collins since 1996. There's been over 90 games in this rivalry. They, of course, have been playing in Denver at Mile High Stadium for the last couple of years, and the Buffaloes notably won in 2 overtimes a year ago. There's plenty of history between Coach Prime and Jay Norvell, the head coach at Colorado State. They got into a little spat through the media a year ago leading up to that game. And speaking of that game last year, Colorado State was up big. They squandered that lead late. It went into overtime. They weren't able to finish the drill. Colorado is 0-2 against the spread so far this season. And yes, Shedeur Sanders can't find any protection. I mean, we're not going to dismiss what the issue is. Yes, the offensive line is having trouble for Colorado, but I think Colorado State's offense can keep up with Travis Hunter, keep up with Jimmy Horn, Shedeur Sanders, and that Colorado offensive threat. So look, another primetime home dog in a rivalry game. Gabe, sound the alarms. You and I just went opposite sides on all 3 picks. I'm taking Colorado State plus the 7.5. I think hungry dogs run faster. I love a primetime home dog in an in-state rivalry game and more than a touchdown. I think Colorado State's offense can put points on the board, keep it close. That will be a great game to watch. College football, it's the best game in the world. Week 3 is on deck. You got it locked in right here on the Spin at Sports Insider. Of course, all of our lines, news, and odds presented by Bet Online. For Gabe Ikard, I'm Drew Butler. Allie, we'll throw it back to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Shout out once again to our very own, the guys who are literally incredible, been there, done that, pros, Drew Butler and Gabe Ikard. Now, I am so excited for all the action that week 2 of the NFL season is going to bring us. So let's talk about that now with our very own, once again, Drew Butler, joined by pros Anthony Becht and Jonathan Casillas. What's going on, guys?
Thanks so much, Allie. We are back. It's the Spin Sports Insiders taking a look at week 2 of the NFL. Drew Butler here, joined alongside my guys, Anthony Becht and Jonathan Casillas. And guys, there were certainly some head-scratching results from week 1, but I think the biggest question heading into week 2 is how much is everybody overreacting? And more specifically, are the lines overreacting? That brings us right in to our first game. It's 2 of the top teams in the AFC. This is a kind of newfound rivalry in the NFL. 4:25 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. The Cincinnati Bengals head to Arrowhead to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. Anthony, right now, the Chiefs are 6-point favorites. They do have some extra rest after playing on opening night last Thursday. The total here, 47.5 points.
Yeah, just going back and watching that Chiefs game, man, I just so much star power, so much offense. Andy Reid continues to create and create and create. And it's just difficult. It's difficult for defenses. Baltimore, we all know how good their defense is, and they just had problems. They couldn't cover. They found the matchup issues. Xavier Worthy, the way they used him in the game, clearly that kid with speed, they're going to find even more for him. Pacheco, the power and speed, a Rutgers guy. Listen, it's good to see the offense and defensively. To me, I thought they played a really clean game as well. Thought Lamar Jackson was kind of all over the place and really couldn't find a rhythm. And I look on the other side, you go back and watch the Bengals game, listen, efficient Joe Burrow was, just no big plays.
Yeah.
Their weapons weren't available, no Tyler Boyd because, he's not there anymore. T. Higgins is not there, not available. Jamar Chase hasn't practiced, and who knows? I don't know what he's been doing, but obviously, he's 6 for 6 on attempts and targets. I just don't know right now, how powerful and how explosive this offense can be. And that's a problem going into Arrowhead, going against a team that looks like right now, like, hey, let's go. Like we're playing ball, we're moving it, and Patrick Mahomes continues to, even though he got that big contract many years ago, seems to be a very underpaid quarterback at this point after the last couple of contracts we see. Guys, I know it's a big number, and I don't want to overreact, but I got to take Kansas City here, man. I just think they, at least by a touchdown, beat this Bengals team.
I hear you, man. Kansas City looked amazing. And like Drew said, they're rested. They played on Thursday. They had a mini bye to start the season, and they looked good. Patrick Mahomes looked great. Chris Jones is in midseason form. The defense was dialed up, and they were playing against, last year's MVP Lamar Jackson. And like you said, they had him flustered at times. And yes, they came within a half an inch to losing the game. We all saw that. It was an incredible game. Way to start the season. And you look at the Bengals, man, they couldn't get it done against the Jacoby Brissett-led Patriots. And it's like, what am I watching? And I'm with you. Joe Burrow really didn't look, like the Joe Burrow of old, and it wasn't that his efficiency wasn't there. The downfield attempts wasn't there. A couple costly turnovers. One, they were almost going into the end zone, and then one on special teams. That's going to kill you every single time. I think they tighten that up. I think Joe Burrow is a downfield type of quarterback, man. We've seen it in college. We've seen the weapons that he used to have. He don't have them anymore. Mixon's gone. The receivers are gone. But Jamar Chase is still there. I think he's a very quality wide receiver, top 10 in the league. Joe Burrow, I don't know what's up with the blonde hair. Maybe he wants to go back. Might be a good idea for him to do that. But I think they keep it a little closer than the 6 points. I don't think they can win this game. I think Kansas City is too much. But don't forget, Joe Burrow, if I'm not mistaken, is 3-1. Versus Patrick Mahomes. So there's something there. I don't think they can get this W, but I think they're going to be able to keep it within 6 points.
These two teams certainly on the opposite ends of the spectrum after their 2024 season debuts. A couple of interesting trends here. Everybody knows, and Anthony alluded to it, Andy Reid, his creativity, how he schemes up an offense more specifically off an extended rest of 8 days or more, highly profitable against the spread. However, Joe Burrow, 9-2-1 against the spread in September and October after a loss. That's exactly the spot that he is in. Now, easily people could point to the lack of urgency in the Cincinnati Bengals start to the season under Zach Taylor with Joe Burrow. Those first 2 weeks have been a huge question mark. But remember, this line opened up. The Bengals were only 3.5-point dogs. Yes, they lost to the Patriots. The Patriots clearly had a game plan of going there, do just enough, don't turn the ball over, and see how the chips fall. And the Bengals just threw up all over themselves. Costly turnovers, couldn't convert on third downs. They did everything they couldn't do, and of course, they lost the game. So I see a huge overreaction here to the line. 6 points is way too many. This should be around 3.5 or 4. The markets and the public are certainly reacting after the Bengals killed everybody's survivor entries, and everybody's thinking Joe Burrow with that blonde hair is not it. I like what you said, Jonathan. He's got something against Patrick Mahomes. Yes, the Chiefs are riding high. I think the Bengals keep it close, so I will take those 6 points with Cincinnati inside Arrowhead. All right, let's look at Sunday Night Football, an intriguing matchup here. The Chicago Bears, led by rookie quarterback Caleb Williams, are heading to Houston to take on the Houston Texans, who have a lot of hype, and they lived up to it with a Week 1 victory. 8:20 p.m. kickoff on NBC. Anthony, the Texans are 7-point home favorites. This over-under sits at 46 points.
Yeah, these big numbers are tough. Anytime you start talking about 7 points, it's really, are they going to dominate the game throughout? Went back and watched the Bears. I think there's a lot of hype right now for these young quarterbacks, and rightfully so. They are talented players. But, man, I'll tell you, this isn't preseason. This is very hard league to go out there and execute. And, Caleb Williams, he's got weapons around him, but he understands, okay, going against the Titans, they had Simmons to deal with, Landry to deal with, pressure packages, situations, and, you got to be on point. And I think just right now it's going to take him time to see. And let's be honest, the offense generated no touchdowns. Crazy. They had 3 field goals, 9 points, and they also got 2 on special teams. So you can't lean on scoring on defense and special teams to win football games. On the other hand, just like you said, the expectation level is the Houston Texans. The one thing that stood out to me is, and probably the Bengals wish they could have made a better decision on it, was Joe Mixon had 139 yards rushing.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. You got him out there doing that. CJ Stroud is going to have pick of the litter on whatever he wants to do, and he's about as dialed in as a young quarterback as there is. Listen, man, Houston is at home. The Bears, at some point it will click. Their defense is solid. But, man, I just think Houston is just going to kind of steamroll these guys and just score and score and score. And I just don't know what the Bears have to answer that to stay within the game. It's going to be tight. 7 points is a lot. I do believe that the Houston Texans will cover this spread. 10 points is kind of how I see this game falling out with the way the two teams played in Week 1.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Houston looks great, and that was the point I was going to make. They had over 200 yards total, not just Mixon running the football on the ground, and he had an amazing game. And you look at Chicago, they added Ndunze, they added Allen, and, DJ Moore. They have a talented group of receivers, but it was only 10 of 23 in terms of completions to targets with those top guys. That's just not going to cut it. Those are tremendous wide receivers, but you have to get the ball to them. I think Caleb Williams is going to take a huge step. We look at, the first game to the second game. I think he's going to take a huge step in what he does at quarterback for the Bears. Look, the guys are riling around him. He's a leader, and I think they'll put together a better performance and actually get into the end zone in this game. I think Houston is going to have it, I think, a little wide early, and then maybe a late touchdown would take it in the 7-point range. I just think 7 points is too much. Late in games, teams score, maybe get an onside, maybe score again. So it might even be closer than that, because I think it might be open, like you said, Anthony. I think they'll have a 2-touchdown lead late in the game, and I think maybe Chicago gets some little, some yardage at the end and possibly squeak inside of the 7 points. So I'm going to take those 7 points and pick the Bears.
Yeah, interesting here, especially with it being a primetime game. The Houston Texans historically in primetime, not good, right around 30% against the spread. But when you look at rookie quarterbacks in primetime, especially on the road, it's even worse. So this is like picking the lesser of two evils between the Texans and Bears Sunday Night Football. 7 is a very large number. I'm very interested to see how the Bears offense responds. Again, no touchdowns a week ago. Plenty of talent there. DeAndre Swift, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams. You got to conjure up something to be able to push the ball into the end zone. But when you look at D'Amico Ryans, obviously defensive-minded head coach for the Houston Texans, guys, I think he's going to be able to scheme up some stuff to really frustrate Caleb Williams. This is a big spot for the Bears offense led by Caleb Williams to be in. Primetime favorites, and this cuts me deep, guys, because you know how much I love primetime dogs. Primetime favorites went 4-0 against the spread in week 1. That hurt. Look, I'd love Houston if they were giving up 6.5. Yes, it is 7. I'm going to side with Anthony here. Texans could win this one going away. I'll take the primetime favorite. I'll lay 7 with Houston on Sunday Night Football. All right, let's wrap things up with some Monday Night Football action. The Atlanta Falcons are heading up to Philly to take on the Eagles. Of course, 8:20 p.m. kickoff on ESPN. Anthony, the Eagles are 6.5-point favorites. The total here is 47 points.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Again, I hate leaning on all the favorites, but, you look at both teams' games last week, and really that's all we have to go off of, right? I mean, Kirk Cousins looked a little hesitant. He didn't look himself, and I get it. I mean, you're coming off an Achilles. You're not, your internal clock probably is a little less than it normally would be. You don't want to take hits. We saw a little bit of Aaron Rodgers, although he was a little bit more effective last week in his game. But again, I just didn't see the mesh that I wanted to see offensively. And again, you got to travel on the road and go through all those things. I just think that just doesn't get fixed in a week. I think it gets fixed over a 3-4 game span where they can okay, now we're going, we can get it, we can get things clicking. Defensively, I thought they did well. And now they played against the Steelers, who Justin Fields, people can say what they want against them, but they did held them to just field goals. So that's important as well. But look, Eagles, on the other hand, even though there were a bunch of turnovers and Jalen Hurts made some bonehead plays with his arm, he made some really good plays with his arm. And they have a really good running game. I mean, Saquon Barkley now, again, you talk about the Bengals being upset, maybe not having Mixon. How about the Giants? Yeah. That's all you can talk about. And listen, I think Jonathan can speak to that. I mean, look, this guy's a dog. And clearly when you're in a functional offense, no disrespect, Jonathan, where you have receivers and talent around you, it's a lot easier for a Saquon Barkley to really look like the top 5 pick that he was a couple of years ago, and he's healthy. So he doesn't have to be the guy every week, which to me is a fresher, more explosive player when you're talking about complementary football with a great passing game that they have. And their defense, again, gave up some points, wasn't the best. Jordan Love went up and down the field a little bit in that game. But again, I just feel like right now Atlanta's going to take some time, maybe some weeks to get clicking. I hate taking these spreads. I hate going all favorites this week, but I go in the home favorite here. I think the Philadelphia Eagles for sure win by a touchdown, and a better Falcons team will definitely show up. I just feel like right now the Eagles got too many weapons, too many possibilities to score in this football game.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I think Kirk Cousins, he'll do better because he looked totally uncomfortable week 1 versus Pitt. I mean, the team lost to a team in Pittsburgh. They didn't score any touchdowns, and they won the game. They beat the Falcons, and the Falcons, held them to 6 field goals, and they still lost the game. They can't do that again, and they're not going to be able to keep Philly out the end zone. And let me tell you something, fellas. I was out at a sports bar watching this game, and when Saquon scored his first touchdown, I looked around, and everybody was just shaking their head, man. Everybody that was there in New Jersey was just shaking their head. Saquon looked explosive. He looked fast. He looked strong, and he's out to prove a point. That is a dangerous running back. And the thing is, he's not going to have to get 25, 30 carries in the game for the team to be successful. The only way he's going to get those carries is if the team is up by 2 touchdowns late and they're just giving him the ball to run out the clock. That is a dangerous weapon that the Giants failed to keep. And now the Eagles are just going to reap the benefits of my guy, Saquon. Oh, my gosh. They're explosive. They have great receivers on the outside. Jalen Hurts made some mistakes. I don't expect him to keep doing that. He doesn't have to do that with the talent that he has. I think Philly runs away with this game. I'm going to lay the points and reluctantly pick Philly.
All right, guys, look, we started out this segment by saying everybody is overreacting. I'm down here in Atlanta. Falcons fans are ready to crumple up the 2024 season and just throw it out the window after their start against the Pittsburgh Steelers a week ago. And yes, Kirk Cousins did look timid. It was the first head coaching job for Raheem Morris, Zach Robinson, the offensive coordinator. Things just weren't clicking. What I did is I went to go find some perspective. Matt Ryan said relax, it's just one game. What did Aaron Rodgers say after his loss on Monday Night Football? Everybody chill out. If you get off the bandwagon now, you're not allowed back on. Tom Brady said the same thing. Look, I'm just like those guys. You see me, you understand how athletic I am. Matt Ryan, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, and Drew Butler. That's obvious. This is a huge overreaction. The Falcons offense does have a lot of question marks, but the defense was solid, and they do have some real playmakers. Grady Jarrett looked great. Matthew Judon, a big acquisition in the offseason from New England. Their two safeties, Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons, they're going to be able to keep that offense of the Eagles in front of them. My biggest kind of question mark here is Kirk Cousins in primetime, guys. We all know about the trend. 2-6 against the spread in his last 8 primetime starts. However, he's won 3 of his last 4 starts on Monday Night Football. This is another big overreaction as well. The line was right around that 4 mark. Now it's up to 6.5. I did like how Kellen Moore looked in his play calling debut as the offensive coordinator for the Eagles with Jalen Hurts. The Eagles also coming back after that long trip down in Brazil. Anthony, this is a close one eye and just hope. This might be the ugliest underdog the entire week 2 slate, but I'm taking those 6.5 points with the Falcons. If the Bengals can lose to the Patriots outright, anything can happen in the NFL. All 3 of us know it. The NFL is a week-to-week league. I think the Falcons make some good corrections. They keep this one close. They might even be able to steal one on Monday Night Football, so look out for a little pizza money there. I'll take Atlanta plus 6.5 and close one eye on Monday night. Guys, that's the week 2 slate. All lines, news, and odds, of course, provided by Bet Online. For Anthony Becht and Jonathan Casillas, I'm Drew Butler. Allie, we'll throw it back to you.
Amazing stuff as per usual. Drew Butler, Anthony Becht, Jonathan Casillas, the band is back together, and it feels so wonderful. Great insight as always. Well, my friends, that wraps it up for this week. Remember to head on over to sportsinsider.com for all the latest odds, news, and info for both the college game and, of course, the NFL. Enjoy the action, and we'll see you next time right here on Sports Insider's The Spin.